In 1184, Gerard of Ridefort was elected Grand Master of the Knights Templar. He was very much unlike most of the men who had led the Templars in the past. For one thing, he lacked a deep connection with the order, having only joined it recently. Up until this point, his life had been dominated by the pursuit of power in the secular arena. Now, all of the sudden, he took the vows of a Templar, and because of his connections, managed to quickly gain the title of Grand Master. In 1186, Saladin was tremendously pressuring the Crusader states. Since he controlled the wealth of Egypt, as well as the most important Saracen territories in Syria, he was able to field massive armies far beyond anything that could be assembled by the Kingdom of Jerusalem. That year, an incompetent man ascended the throne of the Crusader kings, brought to power by his wife, Princess Sibylla, heiress to the kingdom. Guy's election divided the nobles of Jerusalem, for Sibylla's brother, the late King Baldwin IV, had arranged his will so that Sibylla and her husband would not inherit his crown. Leading the opposition to Guy's rule was Count Raymond III of Tripoli, who governed the wealthy territories to the north of the kingdom. Raymond was so opposed to Guy's rule that he made an alliance with Saladin, who was delighted to sow division among his foes. Saladin told Raymond that he would intervene to protect Raymond's lands should Guy threaten him. In early 1187, Saladin began gathering his forces for a major attack on the Kingdom of Jerusalem. At this point, Guy recognized that he must heal his feud with Raymond of Tripoli, and so sent a peace delegation to Tiberias, one of Raymond's fortresses. Meanwhile, Saladin sent a large force under the commander Musawwar al-Din to raid the Kingdom of Jerusalem's lands around the city of Acre. This Saracen force had to march through the territory of Raymond of Tripoli to reach its destination. Raymond felt obliged to allow this, since he'd made an alliance with Saladin, but he insisted that the Saracens attack no towns or villages, and he dispatched word through the countryside, warning the people that Saladin's forces were on the way. Among those who heard news of Raymond's warning was Gerard of Ridefort at the Templar castle of Lefebvre. Gerard was currently hosting Guy's peace delegation on the way to meet with Count Raymond of Tripoli. Hearing that Count Raymond was allowing one of Saladin's armies to march through Christian territory infuriated Grand Master Gerard. He assembled a small force from some of the local garrisons, 90 Templar knights, 10 Hospitaller knights, and 40 secular knights. With this tiny force of 140 men, Gerard marched out to intercept the Saracens. On May 1st, 1187, Gerard and his knights came upon the Saracen host at the springs of Cresson near Nazareth. Some sources number the Saracen army at 6,000, others at 7,000. Even if they were only a fourth of these numbers, Gerard's cavalry was hopelessly outnumbered. The Templar marshal at once insisted that they withdraw, as did other knights in the group, but Gerard outranked them all and declared forcefully that they would attack. On the orders of the Templar Grand Master, that small band of knights charged a Saracen army numbering in the thousands. Any initial impact made by the Templars' charge was quickly reversed by the sheer numbers of the enemy host. The Saracens overwhelmed the Crusaders, slaying virtually all of them. Only 3 knights escaped with their lives, among them Gerard of Ridefort, who was seriously wounded but managed to flee to safety. Gerard of Ridefort's strategy here seems completely bizarre, but it does in many ways line up with what we know about his character. Gerard was greatly angered by the idea that Raymond of Tripoli would allow Saladin's troops to pass through Christian territory on a raiding expedition against other Christian territories. Given this outrage, Gerard may have been unwilling to back down, even in the face of certain defeat. Ultimately, such an action was purely detrimental to the Kingdom of Jerusalem, which was always dangerously short of men and could not afford to lose any knights. Such rash behavior was very rare among the Crusaders. The famous Saracen chronicler Usama ibn Munkid describes the Crusaders as the most cautious of men in warfare. But this wasn't the last time that Gerard would show recklessness. Months later, it was Gerard who advised King Guy to march the Crusader army straight into Saladin's trap at Hattin. Nevertheless, exactly what happened at the Battle of Cresson remains a mystery, for our sources for the battle conflict greatly. The Saracen chronicler Ibn al-Athir provides no details, but simply says the battle was fit to turn black hair gray. Ibn al-Athir also glories in a victory over the feared Templars and Hospitallers, whom he describes as the Franks' firebrands. Meanwhile, the Gesta Regis Ricardi describes Gerard's small forces unexpectedly encountering the Saracens and essentially being forced into a hopeless fight. But this is a distant source, whose author was far removed from the battle. My initial description of the battle is based primarily on the account of Arnold, squire to Balian of Ibelin, who was prejudiced against Gerard and Guy, but nevertheless was close to the action. In addition, a letter from Pope Urban III also describes Gerard as choosing to attack the Saracens because he was inflamed with Christian zeal. Pope Urban III's account was based on Gerard's own account of the battle, which lends credence to the idea that Gerard did in fact order a charge when he had the option to retreat. Whatever the details, what's clear is that at Cresson, on May 1st, 1187, a tiny group of Templars and Crusader Knights was wiped out by a much larger Saracen army. News of this calamity spread woefully throughout the kingdom. Raymond of Tripoli had to watch as the Saracens rode back through his lands with the heads of men he'd known affixed to spears. The alarm of this event helped prompt a reconciliation between Raymond and Guy, who met at the Hospitaller Castle of St. Job near Jerusalem. Raymond fell to his knees before Guy, who raised him up and embraced him. Gerard of Ridefort's survival of Cresson can be counted as a serious misfortune for the Kingdom of Jerusalem, for it was Gerard's advice, only 2 months later, that would lead King Guy to march his army into a deadly situation against Saladin near the Horns of Hattin. So regardless of what happened at Cresson, Gerard's recklessness seems undeniable. Templar history is filled with great leaders. Gerard, one of the few bad ones, happened to be in power at the worst possible moment for the Kingdom of Jerusalem.